Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavatir Naishtiki Om Agyantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukham karoti vachanam pangam nangati kire yat kripatamaham vande Shri Guru Dinataranam Paramanandam Madhavam. So we are resuming our discussion from 3:21:26. This is the conversation between Kardam Muni and the Supreme Personality himself. So earlier in the chapter, we saw that after performing austerities for 10,000 years, Kardam Muni was fortunate to get the personal darshan of the Lord. And in the earlier verses, he speaks glorifying the position of the Lord, condemning the position of the materialistic people, and also condemns his own position that he's performing austerities to get a wife. And then the Lord responds beautifully to him. He glorifies Kardam Muni. He assures him that his fears of being drawn into materialistic life are unfounded. He assures him about his position as a devotee, and then he begins to speak more specifically about the benediction that Kardam Muni is seeking, which is a suitable wife. So, verse 26. Sacheha Vipraraj Rishi Maheshya Shatarupaya Ayasyati Didrukshurtvam Paraswadharma Kovidaha. The day after tomorrow, O Brahman, that celebrated emperor, who is expert in religious activities, will come here with his queen, Shatrupa, wishing to see you. So the Lord is laying down the circumstances in which Kardam Muni will receive his future wife. So previously I said that I've already fulfilled your desire. You want a wife? I have already made that arrangement. Now he's talking about how those arrangements will manifest. So he talks about Swayambhavu Manu and he addresses him as Raj Rishi. So Raj Rishis are those Srila Prabhupada talks about in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that they are kings, but because they are ruling completely on a spiritual basis, they are considered to be rishis. So generally rishi is applied to those who are renounced. So rishi literally means that those who head for the forest. But Raja Rishi are those who are completely surrounded by all kinds of opulence, who have to perform all kinds of so-called materialistic activities, but they are internally renounced. So the same title was also applied to Maharaj Parikshit. And in the 4th chapter, Krishna says that the science of the Bhagavad Gita has been given by the Raj Rishis from one generation to another. So Swayambhavu Manu is glorified as a Raj Rishi, and his wife Shatrupa. So Shatrupa literally means, Shat means 100, Rupa means beauty. So Shatrupa means that who has a beauty equivalent to hundreds of beauty. Another way of saying that one who is extremely beautiful. It glorifies the exquisite beauty. And in addition to being a Rajrishi, Sambhavu Manu is also glorified as Dharma Kovida. That he is the one who is an expert in religious activities, properly situated in Dharma. Verse 27. Atmajan asita pangim vayashil gunavitam mrgayantim patim dashatya anurupayate prabhu. He has a grown-up daughter whose eyes are black. She is ready for marriage, and she has good character and all good qualities. She is also searching for a good husband. My dear sir, her parents will come to see you, who are exactly suitable for her, just to deliver the daughter as your wife. So you can see that Krishna is playing a role of a bit of a matchmaker. So he first glorified the parents. He glorified the husband, Rajarishi, Dharma Kovida. He glorified the wife, Shatrupa, as being very beautiful. Now he's glorifying the daughter. That grown up means that she is in the right age to get married. Beautiful eyes, good character, good qualities. And most importantly, she is searching for a good husband. So the fact that Krishna says she is searching for a good husband indicates the dynamics of marriage. Srila Prabhupada talks about it in the purport, that the marriage is done in conjunction of the consent of the girl and the effort of the parents. The fact that he's saying that she's searching for a good husband means that she herself is actively involved in the process of the selection of a husband. So she's not being delivered like cattle. The parents say that this is the right place, and then she goes there. But the active participation and the consent of the girl is indicated over here. But at the same time, she's taking help of her parents, which is why Krishna says that her parents will come to see you, who are exactly suitable for her. So the suitability is between Kardam Muni and Devahuti. So Vishwanath Chakravarti, he translates this phrase, she's searching for a good husband, to who desires a good husband. Similar connotation. And Srila Prabhupada, he glorifies this arrangement in which there is active participation of the girl as well as the parents. So he says that this is actually the duty of the parents. The girls are never thrown into the public street to search out their husband. For when girls are grown up and are searching for a boy, they forget to consider whether the boy they select is actually suitable for them. Out of the urge of sex desire, a girl may accept anyone. But if the husband is chosen by the parents, they can consider who is it to be selected and who is not. According to the Vedic system, therefore, the girl is given over to the suitable boy by the parents. She is never allowed to select her own husband independently. So Prabhupada is stressing on the fact that there has to be cooperation and collaboration. The problem in the parents selecting a suitable match exclusively for the girl is that it's the girl who has to spend the rest of their life. So whether the fact that she's interested in marrying, the fact that her likes and dislikes are factored are very important. That even in the Dwapar Yuga, we see in the Swayamvar system that it was after the initial vetting that was done by the parents, then it's the it's the girl who had complete independence in selecting. But the flip side of it is, when Prabhupada talks about it, that if the girl is the only one who's making the selection independent of any other factor, then not all the factors that are suitable in a marriage may be considered. So it may be simply based on a physical attraction or passion, which, while relevant, is not the most important factor. Prabhupada in the earlier purport talks about what are the other factors that are important. The compatibility of the family, the compatibility of the charts, the willingness of the girl. So he talks about these factors that are also important. Okay, verse 28. Samahitam te hridyama yatriman parivatsaran satva brahmnirpavaduhu kamana shubhajishyati. That princess, O holy sage, will be just the type that you have been thinking of in your heart for all these long years. She will soon be yours and will serve you to your heart's content. So Jiva Goswami says that when Krishna is saying that the word samahitam, that your heart has been fixed on the girl. Samahitam te hridam yatra, on whom your heart has been fixed. Jiva Goswami says that this can also be translated to that samahitam is that your heart that has been fixed on me, Imam Parivatsaram. That because your heart has been fixed on me for so many years, you will be blessed with a suitable bride. So he makes this point also that the interpretation of this phrase is that Devahuti will be no less than Kardamuni in following dharma. And Prabhupada notes in the purport that the proposal that the Lord is placing is what he calls an intercaste marriage, because Kardam Muni is a Brahman and Swambhavu Muni is a Kshatriya. Now, essentially, they are both sons of Brahma, but because of their occupation, that Swambhavu Manu has taken the occupation of a king, which is a Kshatriya, and Kardam Muni has taken the occupation of a Brahman, which is austerity and penances. So Prabhupada said this means that marriages between different castes were current even in those days. That a Brahman could marry the daughter of a Kshatriya. But then he said the Kshatriya could not marry the daughter of a Brahman. So in the Manusmriti it is indicated that if the man is from a higher caste than the woman, then such marriages are called anulom. And If the woman is from a higher caste than the man, then such marriages are called vilom. So anulom marriages are acceptable, but vilom marriages are considered to be unacceptable. Now, marriages that are outside the caste are in the general category of pratilom. So pratilom marriages, which are mixed caste marriages, could either be anulom or vilom. So Prabhupada indicates that because this is an anulom marriage, where the man is of a higher caste, it is perfectly accepted, and the Lord Himself is recommending. Verse 29. Yatatma vratam viryam navada pravishyati virye tvadye rishya adhashantyagya adhasan adhasantyagya satmanaha. She will bring forth 9 daughters from the seed sown in her by you. And through the daughters you beget, the sages will duly beget children. So later on we'll see the dynasty of Kardam and Devahuti. That the 9 daughters will be given to 9 Prajapatis. And these 9 daughters will in turn have further children that will then populate the universe. Verse 30. Tvam cha samyaganusthaya nideshama ushatmaha maitirti kritashesha kriyartho mam prapatyasya. With your heart cleansed by properly carrying out my command, resigning to me the fruits of all your acts, you will finally attain to me. So after the previous verse, Kardam Muni may have got a little worried that even though he's the one who's asking for a wife, now Krishna is telling him that he will have 9 daughters. So he's thinking that I have 9 daughters, I'll have to marry them, they will have grandchildren. So what's going to happen to my devotional life? What's going to happen to my spiritual life? So in verse 20 of this chapter, Kardam Muni had actually prayed for the Lord's mercy. He had said, Mayaya, please give me your mercy. In 2 verses, this verse and the next verse, the Lord is assuring him of the mercy. So this verse, it summarizes the description of a Nishkam Bhakta. So externally, Kardam Muni is appearing to be and this is a prediction, so will appear to be a completely involved Grahastha. Right? He is going to have 9 daughters and then they will be married. But now Krishna is talking about his conception, mental conception. That his heart is going to be cleansed. Why? Because he's going to be executing the desire of Krishna. So Prabhupada says the word Tirthi, Krita, Shesha, Kriya Artha are significant. Tirtha means a sanctified place where charity is given. So people used to go to places of pilgrimage and give in charity over there. So what is Kardam Muni giving away in charity? everything. Strictly speaking, he's not giving in charity to the Lord, he's offering it to the Lord. But Krishna says, resigning to me the fruits of all your activities. So Prabhupada said, this is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you sacrifice, the result should be given to me only. So Krishna says this in the 9th chapter, the very last verse of the 9th chapter, Yat karoshi yadasnasi yat juhoshi tadashi. And then Prabhupada goes on to say that in another place in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that I am the enjoyer of all sacrifices and everything done for the welfare of mankind or society. So this is the verse that appears in the 5th chapter. It's also the very last verse in the 5th chapter. Bhoktaram Jagatapasama Sarvalok Maheshwaram 529. So Prabhupada is putting these two verses side by side to indicate that because the Lord is the enjoyer of everything, the proper conception is that everything that one everything that one does should be done for the enjoyment of the Lord. And when these two conceptions are lined up, then one attains the position similar to that of Kardamuni, that the heart is completely cleansed and there is no reactions to the activities that are formed, regardless of whatever the activities are. So because Kardam is acting for the perfection of the Lord, for the pleasure of the Lord, his perfection is assured, even though his endeavor is material. So this is Krishna disambiguating the concerns of Kardamuni earlier on, saying that I'm coming to you for material desires, and I have material urges, etc. So Krishna is assuring him that he is giving him the highest benediction, that he is saying that you will finally attain me, not because of some sentimentality, but he's saying that because of the science behind that, which is being followed by Kardama. And because even though every activity that he's doing it for the pleasure of the Lord, and every activity that he's doing is by the order of the Lord. So that point was also made by Krishna earlier on, that he was glorifying Kardama as Prajapati, indicating that it is for his pleasure that he will be begetting children, so that the other conditioned souls have an opportunity to take birth in the soul. So then one may question that if Krishna is assuring Kardamuni of this, why was Kardamuni condemning his own desires? Does Kardamuni lack the understanding of the science of spirituality? Does Kardamuni not understand that if I do things for the pleasure of Krishna with complete detachment for the results, the Lord will be happy for me? Or does it mean that the Lord is giving a benediction to Kardamuni that it does not actually deserve? So the answer here lies actually in the humility of Kardamuni. That Kardamuni, he understood this tattva, but as a devotee, he is humble. So he understands that he wants to act for the pleasure of the Lord. He understands that he needs to be detached from the results, but he's also humble enough to understand that all this is possible only by the benediction of the Lord. So he's not taking this position that I am so great that I will be completely detached from the fruits of my activity. and I'm so exalted that I'm only acting according to the desires of the Lord, so there will never be any possibility of me being materially contaminated. In fact, quite the opposite. He's saying I'm so fallible that when I act, it is possible that I will become materially contaminated. And the desires that I have, it's possible that they are for my sense gratification. So unless I have the mercy of the Lord, there is every chance that I will be contaminated. So this is Kardamuni reflecting the mood of a sincere devotee, of being humble, devoid of pride, and most important, always seeking the mercy of the Lord. Verse 31. Kritvadayam cha jiveshu dattva chabhyamatmavam mayatmanam sahajagat dakshasya mani chapimam. Showing compassion to all living entities, you will attain self-realization. Giving assurance of safety to all, you will perceive your own self as well as all universes in me and myself in you. So here Krishna is further revealing the saintly character of Kardamuni that is making him a qualified recipient of his benediction. That his so-called material desires are actually an emblem of his compassion to all living entities. And giving assurances of safety to all. So the assurances of safety to all that Kardamuni is giving or will be giving is the fact that he is demonstrating this principle by his own personal example of how if one serves the Lord, he is always protected. Now, Kardamuni, we'll see later on, he does not preach. After he has children, he leaves, and we don't see anything more of Kardamuni. Yet Krishna is saying that you will be giving assurances of safety to all. So where does he give that assurance? He's giving it through the way that he is conducting himself in this whole interaction. That is aligning his desires to that of his Guru and Krishna. He is following the process. So as a brahmachari, he performed austerity. And when the Lord came, then he demonstrates his humility and the need for him to take shelter of the Lord. So all these are very important lessons for practicing devotees. So in the second part, Krishna says that you will perceive your own self as well as all universes in me and myself in you. So very similar to what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. This is chapter 6, where he says, a true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. So Prabhupada explains that this does not mean that Kardamuni is attaining perfection through impersonalistic yoga, because this description can also be confused as Brahman, that everybody is Brahman. So everybody is in Brahman, and Brahman is in everybody. So Prabhupada says that this is not that. The non-difference that is being considered over here is because the devotee considers that everything is resting on Krishna. Everything belongs to Krishna. Everything is created by Krishna. So it is non-different from him. And even though he is maintaining everything, he is distinct and separate. So Prabhupada quotes 9.4, that where Krishna says that by me in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. So Prabhupada says this means that everything should be considered as a product of the Lord's energy, and therefore everything should be employed in the service of the Lord. One's energy should be utilized for one's self-interest. Self-interest over here translates to service of the Lord. That is the perfection of the energy. Vishwanath Chakravarti, he gives a little bit more, I would say, slightly esoteric interpretation of this verse. He says that when the Lord is giving this benediction, he is assuring Karda Muni that his realization, which so far as a yogi was directed towards the Paramatma, will now expand to that of Kshodakshay, Vishnu. Or he says there is an even more esoteric interpretation that just like Mother Yashoda saw the whole universe in Krishna, Karda Muni will also see the whole universe in Krishna. And just as the gopis, they see Krishna within themselves, Karda Muni will also see Krishna within himself. So Vishnu Chakravarti is saying this is indicating that Karda Muni, as a devotee of the personal form of Krishna, will have realizations that are reserved for those who are in the higher rasas of Vatsalya and Madhurya. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada actually has a pretty elaborate purport in which he talks about the duty of a householder and the relationship of a householder with a sannyasi. So, so for a householder, Prabhupada says that the duty of the householder is to earn money, because none of the other ashrams are supposed to earn money. But along with that duty, which is earning money and then enjoying the money, is the injunction that it should be spent to help the other ashrams. So Prabhupada says that the householder should earn money by business or by profession and spend at least 50% of his income to spread Krishna consciousness. 25% he can spend for his family, and 25% he should save to meet emergencies. This example was shown by Rupa Goswami, so devotees should follow it. Then regarding sannyasi, Prabhupada says that when you look at the different grades of devotees that are given in the Nectar of Devotion, the Uttamadhikari, Madhyamadhikari, Kanishtadhikari, the sannyasi is considered to be an Uttamadhikari. So he says that the first class devotee gives assurance to every living being that there is no fear of this material existence. Let us live in Krishna consciousness and conquer the nations of material world. They offer fearlessness to the common man is the greatest act of their charity. So this is how the sannyasi reciprocates to the charity that is given to them by the grihasthas. So the grahasthas do dravyadan, and the sannyasis do abhaydan. So they give in charity fearlessness. The grahasthas are always very fearful. What will happen to my material life, my family, my job, my wealth? And because of that, they lead a miserable life. So when they use their hard-earned money and give in charity to a deserving sannyasi, the sannyasi reciprocates by relieving them of this fearful situation. So in this way, Prabhupada says that the sannyasi and the grahasthas support one another. The purpose of the sannyasi is to actually go to the grahasthas. And Prabhupada says the grahastha will not go to the sannyasi because he is absorbed in this family affair. So the sannyasi's duty is to go, to knock at the door, and to forcibly inject themselves. I'm paraphrasing over here. I'm giving you the essence of Prabhupada's purport. That to forcibly inject themselves into the life of the grahasthas, because otherwise the grahastha will never think about spirituality. And having made themselves a part of the life of the grahasthas, then the duty of the sannyasi is to elevate them spiritually. And then what is the duty of a householder? Prabhupada says that a householder should be initiated by the sannyasi. So they must accept the sannyasi as a guru. And acting on his order, they should assist him in spreading Krishna consciousness. So they should first follow it themselves in their home, and then they should spread it. So Prabhupada is contemporizing his purport. A lot of it, what he's saying, is the mood with which he established ISKCON, and he foresaw that how ISKCON should grow. Because earlier on, ISKCON was almost entirely grahasthas. The earlier disciples of Prabhupada was grahasthas, and then from around the 70s, 70, 71, and then Prabhupada started encouraging the men to take sannyas. So then they were the sannyasis who came in. And then, of course, there was the inevitable conflict between grahasthas and sannyasis. That should grahasthas be living in the temple? There should be congregation. Should grahasthas be allowed to worship deities? Should sannyasis be associating so closely with grahasthas, etc.? So Prabhupada is writing this to show that how can these two ashrams coexist and nourish one another in making spiritual advancements. Okay. So I'll do one more verse, and then after that we can pause for any discussion. So aham swam shakalaya twadvire namahamune tavukshetre devahutyama pranashye tattva samhitam. O great sage, I shall manifest my own plenary portion through your wife Devahuti, along with your 9 daughters, and I shall instruct her in the system of philosophy that deals with the ultimate principle or categories. So Krishna has saved the best for the last. So initially he said you will have 9 daughters, and then Kardamuni got worried. 9 daughters, what do I do? Then he said, no, don't worry. Everything will be okay. While you will be doing the duties of a husband and a father, you will be doing it in full surrender to my instructions and complete detachment. Now he says things get even better. That I personally will come as your son. So he says, so amsha kalaya. And Prabhupada gives a little bit of technical explanation on what does Swamsha and Kalaya mean. That does he give it in this? Right. So he says that Amsha means portion. Swa means my own. So Swa Amsha means direct expansion. Like Balram is Swamsha of Krishna. Kala is an expansion of the expansion. So, for instance, Lord Balram expands into Lord Sankarshan. So, while Lord Balram is Swamsha, Sankarshan is Swamsha Kala. And then Prabhupada says that there is no difference between them, that this is more of a technicality. Sometimes we think that Swamsha, Lord Balram, is much greater. And then when we look at incarnations, we see from Krishna comes Balram, from Balram comes Sankarshan, then comes Narayan, then comes Mahasankarshan, then comes the Purushavatars. And then we say that, Shodaksha Vishnu is expansion of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, is expansion of Mahavishnu, is expansion of Mahasankarshan, is expansion of Narayan. So in our mind, we say that we think that maybe it is diminished. Maybe the potency is diminished. Maybe they are kind of God, but not really like God. And so Prabhupada says that's an offense. And he gives the verse from Brahma Samhita, Diparichire Vaida Santarama Upetya, that just like one candle lights many candles, but at the end of the day, there is no difference between the candle that lighted and the candle that was lit. They all burning with the same potency. The only difference is that one candle lights another candle. So similarly, all the Vishnu Tattvas, they should be considered to be non-different. We understand that Krishna is the original candle, but ultimately they are all the same. And then what will Krishna do when he comes as a Swamsha? He says that I will explain that philosophy of Sankhya. So literally speaking, Sankhya means counting. So the process of following the Sankhya philosophy is to seek the ultimate truth by categorizing it based on its foundational principles. So Prabhupada says that this is essentially Tattva Samhita. So Tattva means facts. That what is the essential truth. So the Lord is saying that I will come and explain the Tattva Samhita, which is Sankhya. And Prabhupada warns that the Sankhya philosophy should not be confused by the Sankhya philosophy that is propagated by another Kapila. Prabhupada, I think whenever there is mention of Sankhya, he always cautions, because the other Kapila is an atheistic Kapila. And he is actually the one who is, in the current day and age, more popular. Generally, whenever people talk about Sankhya, it's I guess an odd coincidence that even the second philosopher, who was essentially, my understanding is he belongs to the lineage of Agnidev, but he also adopted the name Kapila, and he also wrote the Sankhya philosophy. But Prabhupada said this is the godless Sankhya philosophy. And the one that was propagated by Lord Kapila is the godly Sankhya philosophy. So we should be cautious of not confusing the two of them. Okay, I'll pause here and see if there's any comments.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. You just gave a definition of Sankhya. Could you state that again, please?
Counting.
So Varshana, I could see that it was saying that you were speaking, but I wasn't able to hear anything. Only the last you said counting. That's the only thing that I heard.
Oh, Proji, I said that. She was asking what is the meaning of Sankhya, the definition of Sankhya that you gave. So I just mentioned counting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you gave a definition. Sorry, I was on a headset. Maybe that's why. You had given a definition of a Sankhya, and I thought it summarized everything very nicely.
Right. So Sankhya is, like Achyuta was saying, Sankhya is essentially counting. And Vishwanath Chakravarti says that the followers of the Sankhya system seek the ultimate truth by categorizing matter by its foundational principles. So it's the more analytical study of the tattvas. So when Lord Kapila will start talking about Sankhya, he does not actually start with Sankhya. Well, it's part of Sankhya, but does not start with the counting aspect of Sankhya. He talks about Shuddha Bhakti. And once he talks about Shuddha Bhakti, establishes this as the ultimate goal, then he goes into the more analytical aspects of it.
I also wanted to appreciate the way you were presenting Prabhu in one of the previous purports, where you do this conversation between how did what would why is Kapila saying like this, and the Lord says that, and so that conversational style of presenting is very nice. So thank you so much. It's just hard for me to take down all the notes, but so I don't retain much of it, but it makes so much sense. Like a lot of it is unsaid, which gets clarified when you say this. So thank you so much for that. And then I had another comment was that somehow when you were talking about Kapila, Kardama Muni, his humility, and how he will never fall down because of his devotion to the Lord. I was also thinking this famous pastime of Prabhupada, where he says that he asks his disciples, what's the difference between you and me? And then, they all glorify him and he says, yeah, so just somehow that came to my mind. Thank you, Prabhu.
Very nice. Nice. Yeah. Prabhupada had that humility.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, regarding Kardama Muni's compassion, because of Kardama Muni's compassion, he engaged himself in this material activities of procreating. So I just wanted to comment on that, because a couple of times Guru Maharaj's class, when I attended at the end, somebody would ask the question, is it okay if I earn money nicely and then support the Krishna consciousness movement through my earnings? And Maharaj would say, no, that should not be the priority. The priority should be the spiritual, and then that should take the next step. So can you please? And that's what I remembered. And when a person asks such a question at a Kardama Muni level, it makes sense that it's compassionate. Whereas in our level, it's totally different, I guess. Can you please share throw some more light?
Sure. Thank you for sharing that, Prabhu. Yes, I've heard Maharaj speak similarly, and There's a difference between us and Kardam Muni. Kardam Muni can engage with Maya Devi and still maintain his spiritual potency. As such, most of us are Maya Devi can beat us up anytime she wants. We are pretty much at her mercy. Plus, if you provoke her even more, then we don't have that Shakti. We don't have that spiritual potency to resist her. So Maharaj and other spiritual guides, the general instructions, the guidance is that one does as much that is needed to lead a comfortable life. One earns enough to support the temple. But if we start going into this mentality of let me make millions of dollars and then support the temple with my millions of dollars, then we might get so much engrossed in the first part of our endeavor, the making of the millions of dollars, that we may never be able to be able to detach ourselves sufficiently. So it's basically more of a way to protect ourselves against overestimating our own strengths. Like Kardam Muni is so strong, yet he's scared that if he has a family, if he has a wife, he may fall. Most of us already have a wife and a family, so for us to basically endeavor more into like atyahara prayaschas, it's a risky proposition. I remember early on, many years ago. This is back in the early 90s. Mukund Maharaj was a resident sannyasi at a temple, and he had come for a home program. So one of the devotees, he later on became a disciple. At that time, he was not. He was asking him that, is it okay if every week I buy a $1 lottery ticket, and if I win, I'll give the money to the temple? Maharaj said, absolutely not. He said, but Maharaj, it's just $1. And he says, not the matter of dollar. It's the matter of following the regulative principles. You should not gamble. And Krishna does not need $1. Krishna does not need $1 million. Krishna needs you to do what you have been told by a spiritual master. So I remember we were all very, very new to Krishna consciousness at that time, and it was kind of interesting. And then Maharaj told us about a pastime, not a pastime. This is an incident that had happened during Prabhupada's time, and one of the temple in California, and I forget which temple, but Prabhupada noticed that the collection of the temple was increasing a lot. And he was curious. At that time, the temples, they were mostly collecting through, or entirely collecting through book distribution. And this was a small temple, and the collection kept going up and up. And Prabhupada said, what's going on? How come you're collecting so much? So he asked the temple president, find out what's going on. And it turned out there were two devotees in the temple who were selling drugs. And the money that they were getting, they were giving it to the temple. So the person went to Prabhupada and they said, look, this is early days. So he said, we really need the money. And the money is helping. We're able to help other temples. And if they don't distribute drugs, somebody else will distribute it. And then Prabhupada said, don't you understand? I don't care about money. I'm more concerned about the spiritual welfare of my disciples. Ask them to stop right away. So that's the mode. That the primary concern of our spiritual master, of the senior devotees, is to preserve our spiritual life. Everything else follows. Everything else comes by itself.
Nice, Prabhu. Thank you very much. I also remember the early devotees, the disciples of Prabhupada. Prabhupada asked them to work and earn the money and give the salary to the temple. Do you remember that? What's the detail, or how do we see that?
Well, Prabhupada speaks about it in this purport, right? He says that the duty of a grasta is to work and give 50% of the income to the temple. I mean, very few people follow it now, but that was Prabhupada's instruction, that you earn $100, give $50 to the temple, spend $25 on yourself, and spend $25 and save $25 for your retirement. So this was Rupa Goswami's formula, or actually Sanatana Goswami's formula. And that's what Prabhupada would ask his disciples to do. His earlier disciples did that, more than that. I mean, they would basically earn and, you see Satsaru Maharaj, you see
Jaipatak Swami also was doing taxi.
And I was thinking of that devotee whose picture is there on the Rath Yatra card.
Jayananda Prabhu.
Jayananda. Vijayananda, he was driving a cab, and whatever he worked, 100% he was giving to the temple. So there are people doing, now times have changed. Some people give 10%, the tithe 10%. Some people, we have this debate. I remember once we had this debate that when Prabhupada said 50%, did he talk about 50% of pre-tax income or post-tax income? Or did he talk about 50% of your disposable income or the income that you get? So whether you give 50% or 10%, the act of giving is glorious, and at least we exercise our giving muscles, and just like with exercise, the muscles become stronger. So as we continuously exercise the giving muscles, wherever we are, we will continue to get better. I've noticed that people who give regularly, give circumstances permitting, they continue to give more and more.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, it's not also like the more, when we are saying like making more money, we get more entangled also in this material life, and then we don't have time to do our sadhana, because normally when you work hard, the compensation between time and getting money, you have to put more effort to get more money, and then no time to do to chant, to do sadhana, then we fall down.
Yeah. That's exactly why generally this recommendation is given, that avoid ugra karma. Just do enough that you can lead a peaceful life and give something in charity. But because as you're mentioning, with that kind of karma, it absorbs you completely. And once Maya Devi engages you, then she takes over completely. So that's why it's not that the recommendation is that devotees should be poor or they should be living in miserable conditions. But the recommendation is that the prioritization is done. There are advanced devotees who are very opulent, and they're able to manage. They're able to manage both. Radhanath Maharaj was talking about some of his disciples who were very, very opulent, but they're mature enough that they're able to dovetail it, but not for the general populace.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, so we'll move on to verse 33. Maitre vacha evam tam anubhashata Bhagwan pratyagakshajaha Jagama bindu sarasa Saraswatya parishtata. Maitreya went on. Thus, having spoken to Kardamuni, the Lord who reveals himself only when the senses are in Krishna consciousness, departed from that lake called Bindu Sarovar, which was encircled by the river Saraswati. So in 5 verses, from 33 to 37, Maitreya describes the departure of the Lord and the arrival of Swambhava Manu. So Srila Prabhupada brings our attention to a particular word in this verse, Pratyak Akshaja. So Pratyak Akshaja means that one who is imperceptible to the senses. Similar meaning as Adhoksaja, that one who cannot be seen by material senses. Prabhupada says Akshaja means that knowledge perceived by material senses. So then Prabhupada goes on to say that at one point we are saying that Karda Muni saw the Lord. He talked to the Lord. So which means that the Lord can be seen and the Lord can be heard. And then we are saying that the Lord is Pratyak Akshaja, that he cannot be seen. So how do you reconcile these two notions? And then Prabhupada reconciles it, says that the Lord cannot be seen by material senses, but when the material senses are purified by devotional service, then the senses are no longer material. They become spiritual, and by spiritualized senses, one can be seen. So Prabhupada says, when one's senses are thus purified, then one can see, one can understand, one can hear, and so on. The purification of the material senses and the perception of the transcendental form, name and quality of Krishna are combined together in one word, Pratyak Akshaja, which is used over here. Which means that by Pratyak Akshaja, Adhoksaja can be seen. So Prabhupada does not mention the verse that he's elaborating over here, but can anybody share that which verse that Prabhupada is essentially he's explaining over here to indicate the connection between material senses and spiritual objects?
Ishrikesha. Yes.
Close.
Close.
Not the one I had in mind.
Can you repeat the question, Prabhuji?
So Prabhupada is saying that when the material senses are spiritualized by devotional service, one is able to see Krishna. So this is pretty much word-to-word translation of a very famous verse. Prabhupada likes that a lot.
Yatatam api siddhanam.
Close. So Prabhupada is talking about the verse in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Atasa Krishna Nama Adi Na Bhavegram Indriya Seva Mukhehi Jivadu Swayameva Spurtyata. That one cannot understand the name, form, quality, and pastimes of Krishna with material senses. Na Bhavet Grad Indriya. Then Seva Mukhehi Jivadu. That when these senses are spiritually purified, Swayameva Spurtyata, one is able to perceive Krishna. Okay, verse 34. Nirikshastas, different meter. Nirakshatastasya yayavashesha siddheshwar abhishuta siddhamarga Akaranyan patrathendra pakshe Ucharitam stoma mudirnasam. While the sage stood looking on, the Lord left by the pathway leading to Vaikuntha, a path extolled by all great liberated souls. The sage stood listening as the hymns forming the basis of the Psalm Ved were vibrated by the flapping wings of the Lord's courier, Garud. Prabhupada explains that there are two divisions of the Psalm Ved called the Brahat and the Rathantara. And when Garud carries the Lord and flies, then the two wings, they vibrate these two portions of the Vedas. And the Psalm Ved is one that is chanted by the sages to glorify and pacify the Lord. So another important point to note in this verse is that Kardam was able to see the Lord's return to Vaikuntha. Why? Because he was qualified by Bhakti to not only see the Lord present when he revealed himself, but also to see the Lord's ascension to the spiritual world. So only devotees that are purified can perceive the presence and the movement of the Lord. And Prabhupada quotes 3 verses from Bhagavad Gita to glorify such devotees. So he talks about 7.3, where he says that Manushanam Saharshanam, that out of many thousands of men, one will endeavor for perfection, and out of those, hardly one know me. So this is him talking about the rarity of devotees. And then later verse in the same chapter, Bhaunam Janmanamante Yanaman Prapadyante, after many, many births, one in knowledge surrenders unto me. And then 14.26, that one who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, comes to the level of the Brahman. So then Prabhupada concludes that the conditioned soul cannot understand the devotional service of the Lord. But because Kardam Muni was liberated, he saw the Lord face to face. So the fact, and then Prabhupada then does it from the other way around, the fact that he was able to see him face to face, no doubt means that he was liberated. And therefore he could see Garud carrying the Lord on his way to Vaikuntha, and then he could hear. And here Prabhupada says that actually what Kardam Muni was hearing was the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, which is the essence of the Samveda. Okay, verse 35. Atha sampratithe shukle kardamo bhagavan rishi astisma bindu sarasi tam kalam pratipalayan. Then after the departure of the Lord, the worshipful sage Kardama stayed back on the bank of Bindu Sarovar, awaiting the time of which the Lord has spoken. So what did the Lord say? That in 2 days' time, your future bride will come. So Kardamuni is now following the instructions of the Lord and awaiting for Devahuti to come. Verse 36. Manuho shanandam asthaya shaktambha parichadam aropya swam duhitaram sabharya paryatan mahim. Swayambhavu Manu, with his wife, mounted his chariot, which was decorated with golden ornaments. Placing his daughter on it with them, he began traveling all over the earth. So now the focus of the narration moves away from Kardamuni to Swayambhava Manu. And Prabhupada says that Swayambhava Manu was the emperor of the whole world. So he could have engaged an agent to find a suitable husband. But because he was affectionate, because of his love for his daughter, he himself, along with his wife, is accompanying his daughter, looking for a suitable husband for her. Verse 37. Tasmin Shudhan Vannahani Bhagwanyan Samadisha Upayadashram Padam Mune Shantavritasya Tat. O Vidur, they reached the hermitage of the sage, who had just completed his vows of austerity on the very day foretold by the Lord. So 2 days have passed. Kardamuni was doing his routine rituals, and now Swayambhavu Manu has reached the ashram of Kardamuni. Verse 38 and 39. Yasmin Bhagavato Netran Naya Patanna Shrubindavaha Kripiya Samparishtasya Prapanne Arpitya Brasham Tadvai Bindusaro Nama Saraswatya Pariplutam Punyam Shilvamrita Jalam Maharishi Ganasevitam. The holy lake Bindu Sarovar, flooded by the waters of the river Saraswati, was resorted to by hosts of eminent sages. Its holy water was not only auspicious, but as sweet as nectar. It was called Bindu Sarovar because drops of tears had fallen there from the eyes of the Lord, who was overwhelmed by the extreme compassion for the sage who had sought his protection. So in 7 verses from 38 to 44, the hermitage of Kardamuni and specifically Bindu Sarovar and its surrounding areas is glorified. So Bindu Sarovar has been given that name because it contains the tears of the Lord. And Prabhupada says that these are tears of compassion and pleasure. That when he saw that the austerity that Kardamuni was doing with only the desire to please him, then the Lord's heart was touched, and because of that, tears fell into that sarovar. And anything connected to the Lord is not different from the Lord. Prabhupada gives the example of Ganges. That the Ganges is he said, just as drops of perspiration which fell from the toe of the Lord became the sacred Ganges. So in the same way, the teardrops from the transcendental eyes of the Lord became Bindu Sarovar. Both are transcendental entities and are worshipped by great sages and scholars. The water of Bindu Sarovar is described here as Shivamrita Jala. Shiva means curing. Anyone who drinks the water of Bindu Sarovar is cured of all material diseases. Similarly, anyone who takes his bath in the Ganges is relieved of all material diseases. These claims are accepted by great scholars, and authorities are still being acted upon even in the fallen age of Kali. So just like Ganges is glorious, because it has come in contact with the lotus feet of the Lord. And Prabhupada says drops of perspiration fell in there. Similarly, the tears of the Lord fell into the Bindu Sarovar and made it glorious. So the Bindu Sarovar is considered to be one of the Pancha Sarovars. So there are 5 Sarovars that are famous in different parts of India. So they are the Manas Sarovar, the Bindu Sarovar, Narayan Sarovar, Pampa Sarovar, Pushkar Sarovar, and together they are called the Pancha Sarovar. So many devotees, they consider as places of pilgrimage. So Bindu Sarovar is actually located in Gujarat, and there is a town in Gujarat that is called Siddhapur, also known as Siddhashetra or Siddhasthal. And it's been glorified in the Rig Veda and the Mahabharata also because of the presence of Bindu Sarovar. So it's about 115 kilometers from Ahmedabad in Gujarat. So in the current day and age, it is also famous as a place of pilgrimage, and also as a place where sons, they perform Pindadan for their mother. So that's why it's known. It is known as the Sthan for Matru Shraddha, because on the banks of Bindu Sarovar, Lord Kapila, he instructed his mother Devahuti, and then she got the ultimate liberation. She went back to Godhead. So that's another reason why Bindu Sarovar is famous for Matru Shraddha, and also famous as Siddhapur for devotees to take bath. Prabhupada said it also has the property of curing material diseases. He says material diseases, it could also mean the disease of material existence, but it is also famous for curing material diseases. So the next set of verses are glorifications of Bindu Sarovar. I'll do a couple of verses and then can pause and see if there's any further discussion. Verse 40. Punyadruma lata jalahi kujat punyamragadvejahi sarvatru falapushpadhyam vanraji shriyanvitam. The shores of the lake were surrounded by clusters of pious trees and creepers, rich in fruits and flowers of all seasons. They afforded shelter to pious animals and birds, which uttered various cries. It was atoned by the beauty of groves of forest trees. So what is mentioned over here is punya. And it's interesting to note that punya, which is generally applied to human beings, and karma activities, pious activities, impious activities, is being applied to trees and creepers and animals and birds. And Prabhupada explains that just like there are different classes of men, there are some who are impious, some who are pious. Similarly, there are trees that are pious and impious. And there are animals which are pious and impious. So the pious trees are one that bear nice palatable fruits, fragrant flowers, and the impious ones that are ones that the fruit is poisonous and the flowers are pungent. And similarly, there are birds that are pleasing. They sing nicely, they're pleasing to look at. And then there are birds like crows whose sound is jarring, and they're thieves and they will steal and they will attack you. So he says that because of the piety in Bindu Sarovar, There was not a single impious bird or tree. Every tree bore fruits and flowers, and every bird sang the glory of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Next verse, 41. Matadvija Gane Gustam Mat Brahma Vibramam Matabari Nataptopam Avan Avayan Matako Kilam. The area resounded with the notes of overjoyed birds. Intoxicated bees wandered there. Intoxicated peacocks proudly danced, and many cuckoos called one another. So this is a continuing description of the beauty of the area around Bindu Sarovar. So earlier it was plants and trees. Now the focus is more on the animals. That the birds were happy, overjoyed, and the intoxication of the bees indicate that the flowers over there, they produced very nice honey or nectar, which was intoxicating to the flowers. And the peacocks were happy. The peacocks were happy because there was good rain, and there was lack of envious animals. So they peacefully danced and happily called one another. Okay, so I'm going to pause over here, and it's kind of in the middle of the description of the Bindu Sarovar, but I think I'll pause here and see if we have any discussion on these verses. Also wanted to get some sense of, because we're coming to the holiday weekend part of it, whether we would like to hold the classes or take a break and reconvene in January, depending on how many people are able to attend. But before that, let me just see if we have any questions or comments on what we have discussed.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. The Bindu Sarovar, is that mean it is as glorious as the Ganges? But we hear more about the Ganges than Bindu Sarovar.
That is true. For whatever reason, Ganges is more famous. Like for devotees, Yamuna is considered to be more sacred than Ganges.
Mm-hmm.
But we'd actually hear more about the Ganges there. So not sure why, but
Yeah. Thank you.
the scriptures do glorify Bindu Sarovar.
Yes, I can see that. Yeah, I never knew about this, about the tears of the Lord in this. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so if there are no more questions, I wanted to get a sense of beginning from next week onwards. Like I said, it's kind of holiday week, couple of weeks, Christmas, New Year, etc. So would you like to take a break and then reconvene from the first Monday in 2021?
No, Prabhuji, I think we should continue.
Okay, so we have one yes. Well, one yes to continue. What do you think, Prem Krishna Prabhu?
So only thing I have, Prabhuji, is we have Maharaj retreat. Putana Lila was really wonderful. I don't know anyone got a chance. Even during our classes, it was going on. But this one starts from Christmas through that weekend. So it is not a conflict. But also, what I would encourage is if you need some break as well, we can take a week's break rather than 2 weeks. So this Monday we can have a last session, and we can again reconvene on 4th.
Praji, one more suggestion. Can we do like a crash course on Bhagavad Gita or something? Like, can we take like the 4 classes for the 2 weeks? The next 2 weeks, can we do BG crash course in 8 hours, something like that?
I haven't actually done that, Achyuta. Bhagavad, so the entire 18 chapters in 4 hours?
I mean 8 hours, so like 4 classes, right? 2 hours each class. So just assuming that that taking that calculation and for the upcoming Gita Jayanti, or maybe like.
If you had given me more notice, then I could have prepared for it.
I just thought about it, Roji, because you thought, I mean, you were thinking of like, you were asking about break and everything. So
yeah, I see that. I mean, I'm doing Bhagavad Gita Bhakti Shastri, but that's a whole different level of details. You know, we are doing we're doing maybe 10 to 15 verses a week.
Right. Yeah, even our Bhakti Shastri was like that.
Yeah, it's a great idea. I mean, I can prepare for it, but I don't think I'd be ready for for presenting it like beginning from next week onwards. I won't be able to do justice. So let's follow Prem Kishore Prabhu's suggestion that we'll have a class on Monday, and I think that will essentially end this chapter. More than because most of the other verses don't have a lot of purport. So it'll end this chapter, and maybe we'll begin with a subsequent chapter. And then after that, we'll take a break and we'll reconvene on, I think, the 4th of January, I believe, which is the Monday.
Oh, okay, Prabhu.
Makes sense? Okay.
Yeah, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Sorry.
Yes, Mataji.
I was just going to add, Prabhuji, I've also watched your videos, where you have done 1 chapter a day on YouTube. They're really nicely done. I really have very nice feedback for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
And also last Friday, you did 10 minutes per chapter, no? By the devotees. This was also good.
That was a student presentation. Yeah, so I did 18 weeks of Bhagavad Gita, and then after that we have 3 weeks of presentation by the students, 6 chapters a week, and I'm really impressed by, because it's so Gopi Parandan Prabhu makes this point that there are 2 things, like there's an overview, there's an underview. So what Prabhupada does, like when he does word-to-word translation, and what Vishnu Chakravarti does, that's underview, that you go into great details to speak about it. And underview is easy, overview is difficult. Because in overview, you have to condense a lot in a little without losing the essence, which means that you need to identify what the essence is and preserve it when you summarize. So I was really impressed by the students that in 10 minutes they were presenting a chapter, and they were able to capture the essence of it. So on their request, they did not want their videos to be uploaded. So I don't know what was the decision that they decided to upload it or not. But yes, and Priya, that was a very enjoyable experience for me also, to do a chapter.
Actually, it was on Facebook. I watched it on Facebook.
Yes, it was on Facebook also. And actually, the PowerPoints are there on that website. You can download it from there.
Yeah, Praji, your website is nice actually.
Oh, I didn't know about the website, Prabhuji.
It's my name .com, byharidas.com.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so we'll end. Thank you. Vanchakalpatarubhayasya kripa sindhu vevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Anant Koti Vaishnavinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I Gaur Premanand.
Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.